Our next speaker for the day, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be Hania Baramki. Passionate about education and its role in achieving sustainable development. She is an experienced executive, highly energetic, with solid track record of accomplishments in leading organizations, opening new markets, building partnership, driving digital penetration across diverse sectors, including public sector and education. She currently heads Area 9 team in Middle East and Africa, an exclusive adaptive learning company whose platform is being used by over 30 million users. Hania's work experience spanned across many countries like Turkmenistan, South Africa, Jordan, Hungary, UAE, France and Mexico, making her truly a multicultural individual who understands and appreciates the different value systems. She is fluent in Arabic, English and French. Let's go ahead and welcome Hania on board.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The music's still playing.
Then we can start.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here presenting to you about adaptive learning and sustainability in education. Just having some. Sorry, 1 second. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am, go ahead.
Okay. So my name is Hania Baramki, and I am the managing director of, sorry, just 1 second, I'm having issues with this. My name is Hania Baramki, and I'm the managing director of Area 9 in the Middle East and Africa. What I'm going to talk to you today about is adaptive learning and sustainability in education. So one of the continuous challenges that we have in education is something that Secretary Riley spoke about more than 40 years ago. So we are currently preparing students for jobs that don't exist, using technologies that haven't been invented in order to solve problems we don't even know are problems yet. So this continues to be relevant even till today, and even more so probably than when Secretary Riley talked about it. So what do we need to do about that? In order to have sustainability in education, we need to be able to keep up with the pace of change. And to keep up with the pace of change goes beyond just knowledge. So we can't just be thinking, education cannot just be focusing about the knowledge. We need to be thinking about those 4-dimensional learning. And this is exactly what we have taken into consideration when we built our platform for adaptive learning. So what we need to look at is how to ensure that knowledge is acquired and there's mastery of that knowledge. How are skills, so applying that knowledge and those skills that need to be acquired, but also very importantly, when we're thinking about education, we're thinking about and sustainability, we have to think about character. Today, when I look at what are the most desired skills that employers look for in our students, they are leadership. They're not about, even problem solving comes, I think, number 3. But when you talk about technical skills, we're talking about number maybe I don't know, 50 or no, not so much, but it's 50%. So the most important thing here is really that growth mindset and building that character, that perseverance, the ability to stay with that change and to take away that fear of what may happen and to continue to be going with that change and understanding what that is. It's important to know yourself. And this is where meta learning comes in place, and that awareness of where you are and how you can reflect on your knowledge. So when I look at what do I need today for sustainability, I have to be thinking about more than just knowledge and thinking about this 4-dimensional learning. Another thing that also inspired me was what Ken Robinson said about the element or the school of the future. So we're talking about it's not just about, again, it's not one size fits all, because we're all unique, right? We're all different. And when we are looking at students today, we have to meet them where they are. And the role of schools and roles of education needs to help students be in their element. And what is element is, so the definition that, again, from the studies that Ken Robinson did was being in your element is when your talent, so that's your natural talent and your aptitudes are being supported, but also mapping that with the passion. So when you are in a place where you're able to use your talents and your aptitudes and you have passion for that, you're in your element. And when you're in your element, you thrive. And in order for us to be able to get to that element, again, we have to be thinking about what is our role and how do we adapt the learning to that level that is needed by every student, and providing that personalized approach as opposed to the one-size-fits-all approach. So what we currently do today in schools, we're looking at a curriculum, we're adapting the curricula to meet certain needs or certain outcomes, which is great. Now, what we need to be thinking about is how do I ensure that the outputs of this learning are acquired? So I need to be able to meet the students where they are within that context. And this is the adaptive learning, our version of how to adapt the learning. So we go into that granular level to understand on every single learning objective and competency, so where that student is. And then accordingly, we give him what he needs in order to be able to understand and master that learning objective or competency. And the reason I say or competency, because actually, when you look at a competency-based curricula, it is going to be divided by specific competencies tied to learning objectives. And this is what happens with what is then, when I understand what is, that's the next task adaptivity, then within that task, I'm going to look at inside that task, what needs to happen in order for that student to acquire and master that knowledge. So in order to achieve that, the way I look at content is different. And the way I look at, so I need to build it in a different way. And this is not about just, it's not saying if 1 plus 1, then 2, if it's not an inference model. In order to get a truly adaptive model, I have to decompose the content in a way and use AI and the algorithms to help guide that unique learning path for every learner. So what you see here on the slide is actually a micro-learning unit. So we decompose all the content into micro-learning units. Now, at the heart of every micro-learning unit, we have the learning objective. Now, the learning objective is our core, and it's granular learning objective. It's not one or two things. It is very granular, specifying a single concept. That granular learning objective is then now backed up with a resource that is, again, a resource that is enough for that student to learn that, that learning objective. Then we use different probing, and we call it probing as opposed to a question, because we could use project-based questions, we could use activity probes. It's not a multiple choice question. It's a way to understand whether the student understood or not. So we probe him, and accordingly, we'll be able to assess where the student is. Now, I will add one more very important part is this metacognition. So when I talk about learning and I talk about knowledge, we're always acquiring whether the person answered the answer correctly or not. But one very important component that is usually missing from this equation is whether the person was aware of his knowledge or not. And that is what we refer to, this level of awareness of one's knowledge, is the metacognition. Now, we measure that in different ways. We measure it directly by asking the question in two ways. The first one is, do you know it? So what is the answer? You answer it. The second one is, what is your level of confidence in that knowledge? And the student would respond whether he knows it, he thinks he knows it, not sure, or no idea. Now, if he answers, I know it, he answers it wrong. And when he's asked to inform his level of metacognition, he says, I know it, then he is in that space that we call unconscious incompetent. And this is the problem. When you don't know that you don't know, you're going to be making a lot of mistakes. So this is about walking them from being unconsciously incompetent to going to becoming consciously competent. And the whole idea here, this is when we go back to those micro-learning units. So there's a continuous assessment, and we call it formative assessment or assessment for learning. There's a continuous assessment about that person where he is. So we tell him, okay, you've made a mistake. It's exactly emulating this one-on-one tutoring. So, okay, here's the information. We probe him. He responds wrong. We say, okay, you've made a mistake. He was unconsciously incompetent. We told him that you thought you were right, but you're wrong. I mean, we don't tell him that, but basically the system will just say you made it wrong. Now he is consciously incompetent, means he knows that he doesn't know. He's ready to receive the material. He's given the material. And then doing this more than once, in order for things to become second nature, during this process, by the spaced repetition, we can get them to automaticity. You don't need automaticity for everything, but sometimes for example, where we started as Area 9, we started in 20 years ago, and the company started by two medical doctors who were very interested in reducing medical errors. And to do that, this is the way they came up with a system where the most important thing in order to reduce these errors is first the knowledge and the learning, but you need to also know what you know and what you don't know, because if you don't know that you don't know, you're going to make a mistake. So what we have here in front of us, just an example of what the system does. So basically, when we work with adaptive learning, the most important thing is all this data that we collect as the student is interacting with the platform. So this is a report of it's at the end of basically the module that the students took, and it represents 3 unique paths to proficiency. So all 3 students are actually proficient, and what proficiency is knowing the information and knowing that you know it. So learner 1, for example, he finished the material in 8 minutes, and learner 3 finished it in 33 minutes, but all 3 actually are proficient. The data we get and the way the student, the system helps the student to acquire the data is very different and unique to every learner. The size of the bubble the bubble on every one of these bubbles, it represents the learning objective. The size of the bubble is proportion to the time that the student spent on every learning objective. And as you can see, there are loops, and the loops are different. Again, unique to every learner. Now, we do have a stand in the exhibition hall. So if you want to learn more, I'm conscious of time, you could just visit us there. The whole objective basically for what we do, and again, going back to sustainability in education, is really to cater for the specific needs of every learner. Every learner learns at his own pace. And so the whole idea is no one gets left behind. Just going to check in with the organizer if we have more time.
Yes, we do have time
Okay.
and for some questions also. So if you have
Okay.
something else to cover, please do cover. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. So I will finish with, I have just 2 more slides. So basically, one of the important things in order to understand where we are, and in order to cater to this, what we talk personalized, to have a personalized learning journey, we need to basically leverage the data and the analytics. And one of the powerful tools that we have here is all the information that we get as the students are interacting with our system. So first we can get so as an educator, you get a full overview of the performance of the students. You understand fully where the area of like the metacognition for every student. So how much did they know? How much did they not know? And within that, we also understand exactly what was the most difficult learning objective, or what was the most difficult area where students struggled. I mean, so in this way, we're able to see whether the teacher, the professor, has information to allow him to cater differently to his students, and then be able to assign different homeworks, again, that personalized flavor to his students. And also using the system, you could use it also in a flipped classroom fashion. So you could get information about the students beforehand, so that when you come to the lecture, you do it in a different way, you understand where students are, or after that, in order to support them in their journey and in their learning paths. The beauty of it as well is we get content analytics. So it's not just, we understand the student has the liberty to give us feedback on why he struggled, where he struggled, and what he needs. And so a report that comes out of the system would look like this. So on the one side, you will have everything, like all the performance of the students. You have the metacognition. You can know who's at risk to do the right interventions. And then finally, we go back to our 4-dimensional learning. So on the knowledge, we can use adaptive learning through reading, lectures, and studying. On the knowledge part, when we talk about skills, this is where we can include activities, problem solving, and then on the character, this is where we include experience. And with this, I will say thank you very much. And it was a pleasure to present to you. And if there are any questions, I'll be happy to take those. So I have one question here. It says, current challenges due to COVID-19 are making it difficult for schools to give the consistent experience of education to students? How can technology help us bridge that gap? Great question, and agreed. So one of the things that we missed when we had the online learning is this in-depth knowledge of, we can't look them in the eye and see whether they understood or not. So somehow this is where a tool like adaptive learning or this type of understanding or analytics can be leveraged, because here it gives us that missing dimension that students, that teachers can't get when students are answering online. So, or when we are just doing the whole lecture basically without necessarily seeing them. A lot of people don't even put their videos for us to be able to see whether the people understood or not. So we have seen, to understand what somebody understands and knows that he knows and doesn't know is extremely powerful to help teachers address the fact that I don't see my students face to face. Are there any other questions? Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
A session full of energy and enthusiasm. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing the valuable inputs. Thank you so much.